We love this fireplace, but we've never really loved that rustic mantelpiece, especially because we have all this beautiful mission oak furniture that I've carefully refinished over the years. And it was super out of true. That one piece of rustic pine there was twisted and checked. And you can see here, now that it's level, what it took to get it level. That's how far off it was. So I've established this line here that I can measure from now to know how thick the front of the mantelpiece needs to be to cover that whole checked and twisted piece of wood. So I'm choosing out of this one piece of red oak that I want to make the new mantle out of. I'm choosing the best grain section to be the very front of the mantelpiece, the thing that you'll see most readily when you look at it. And I'm cutting rabbets out of the top and the bottom. I'm going to use 1/4-inch red oak plywood as the surface of the shelf. So I'm cutting in a 1/4-inch rabbet that's probably 3/8 of an inch wide. That's going to give me a little bit more glue surface when I put the plywood in. And I'll show you the cross section here in a minute. But you do this by setting the fence carefully and the depth of the saw carefully to remove just enough wood that your plywood will fit in and match up roughly with the surface on the top and bottom. There's the cross section there. I'm going to cut a miter at the correct length, and I'm going to cut some of the red oak plywood so I can start the assembly. That's 1/4-inch red oak. And I'm going to cut it to length, and here we have the beginning of the assembly. So again, that's going to be glue and brads. There we go, clean up the joint. And then I didn't have enough, I didn't want to buy extra red oak, so I'm using the cut-off sections and I'm gluing them back together so I can make the two edges, the left and right edges of the mantelpiece. I'm going to glue those up carefully, get the surfaces to come together as carefully as I can, clean that up. And when I pulled it out, it was pretty good. And one side, of course, was better than the other, so I chose the best side. I'm going to use the cabinet scraper to remove any material that's not perfectly flat. And then here's the process again of creating the rabbets in the top and the bottom of that piece so I can make the edges out of it. And you can see that piece in the back there. It is a good idea to have an extra piece of the same stock that you can do your test cuts on to make sure your saw is set in the right place. So that's my test piece back there that I've been working with. Now we got to glue up the miters, which is a fun process. So I'm going to glue using CA glue, super glue. I'm going to glue these blocks, these off-cut blocks, to painter's tape around the corner. The blocks are cut off at a 45, so if you glue them back onto the painter's tape, then that gives you a straight line to attach the clamps to. Two parallel surfaces there that pull the miter together. And the painter's tape holds on tight enough that you can actually get a good bond on the glue. Now I'm going to check for square on the corner before I glue down, or before I hit the brads in there. And then I'm going to countersink those guys. And after it dries, just pull those blocks off. And then here's the surface of the left-hand side of the mantelpiece, gluing up the rabbet in this edge piece. And then that blue tape is actually going to hold those sides together as I rotate it back down. And it'll put just enough pressure on that glue joint between the two pieces of plywood to hold it together. And then I didn't have quite enough red oak to finish the right-hand side, so I had to glue up whatever scraps I could find and make one more little piece with the rabbets in the top and the bottom and attach it together. I used pocket holes here, and I clamped it to my fence on the table saw and used the surface of the table saw to hold everything super stable as I put the pocket screws in so that nothing would walk and be all wonky. And it actually turned out pretty good. So here's that piece being glued in. Same trick with this CA super glue and some clamps across the corner, across the miter. And the final glue up of the right-hand edge. And now now the whole thing is basically assembled. I'm going to clean up those joints. And once it's dry, I'm going to take it upstairs for a test fit. Here's pulling off those miter pieces there. Bang. And I'll take it up for a test fit. Let's see how, actually no, I'm not going to show you that yet. I'm going to take it back down, round over the edges, give it some final sanding, and then go in with the same finish that I used on all that mission oak. And here's the first coat of poly going on. A little sanding and wipe down, second coat of poly. And then I decided I'm not going to enclose the bottom in red oak. But what that was going to mean is I needed to actually stain the bottom side of what was already there so that it wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb. And here goes the mantle going in. What a nice fit. Here's the before picture, and here's the after picture. Let me know what you think. Do you like what was there before, or do you like the new thing better?